Hi, this is Natalie Rydstrom and welcome to oddsmarket.com. Joining us now is returning guest and sports writer Martin Green. We're going to do Premier League rundown for week 34. Now, I have to say, Martin, looking at the odds, we've got a lot of high odds. It's very similar to week 33. I think as we do approach the end of the season, these odds have increased as sort of some of these matches do become unpredictable. Does this present value, or does it make us sort of maybe say stay away from the outrights?
I think a bit of both. There are certain games where there is one team that's pretty much checked out for the season, or there's a team that's got other priorities like the Europa League or the FA Cup. So that can present problems because there are a lot of sides in the Premiership at the moment that aren't really fighting for anything. They know they're safe, they're not going to get relegated, and they're not really challenging for the title or for European places. So you've got a few teams that are a bit that might have questionable levels of motivation. But the teams that really are going for it at the bottom and at the top end, I think that's where a lot of the value actually lies.
Yeah. Well, some of them, though, sort of are in very similar positions, like the first match here, Norwich versus Sunderland. Both are fighting relegation, must win for both. Who would you go on that side? Norwich versus Sunderland. I think it's actually Norwich who are the favourites there, 2.45.
I would actually go for Norwich on this one, yes. Two very evenly matched sides. Sunderland are blessed with the goal-scoring talents of Jermaine Defoe up front, but Norwich haven't been too bad at home this season, and they did beat Newcastle recently, which is the other team that they're in the relegation dogfight with.
Mm-hmm.
If they are slightly ahead of Sunderland here, and if they can win this one, they'll really open up a considerable distance between themselves and the two North East clubs. I quite fancy them to do it. They've improved of late, and they've got a good manager, and I think it will be tough, but Sunderland have got a woeful defence, and I think they can exploit it.
All right, well, next match here is Everton versus Southampton. It's at Southampton here. They're 2 points below sixth place West Ham. Obviously, Everton do have very little to play for at this point in time, but it's Everton who are the favourites, 2.45. Southampton, 3.25. Who get your money there?
Tough one to call. I mean, yeah, exactly. Everton are languishing in mid-table, and they're all about the FA Cup now. But yeah, I'd go for the draw on that one, just because I just think neither of them are going to be too up for it.
Well, listen, next is Man United versus Aston Villa. I think you've got to go for Manchester United. They are low, 1.24, but I think it's part of an accumulator bet. Also looking maybe at Manchester United win to 0. Obviously, Aston Villa, they're not even scoring. They did get, obviously, they got finished their goal drought when they got that goal against Bournemouth last weekend. Can they score against Manchester United? I'm not sure. I'm going for Manchester United win to 0.
I'm not sure they can. I think Man United will win this comfortably. Yes, it probably does represent something that you would put in an accumulator rather than an outright bet. But I also like the idea of giving a slight handicap. So maybe starting Aston Villa with a +1 advantage, because I think that Man United will beat them by at least 2 goals. This is just an absolutely terrible Aston Villa side. I'd say they're probably the worst team we've ever had in the Premiership. And I expect Man United to get back to winning ways and beat them quite comfortably here.
All right, next match, Newcastle versus Swansea. Obviously, Newcastle back-to-back losses. They are fighting relegation. Can they do it? I don't know. Obviously, Swansea have very little to play for. They're in 12th place. But then they do come from that Chelsea win, so I think they will be full of confidence. Newcastle 2.4, Swansea 3.35. Personally, I think I'd either back the draw or Swansea. Which way are you leaning?
I'd back Swansea here. They've been vastly improved since Guideland took over as manager. They've always had the players, but they just weren't clicking. They've been on a really good run of form of late. The way they beat Chelsea was just incredible. It ended Gus Hiddink's unbeaten run as Chelsea manager. I keep waiting for this one big Newcastle performance that's going to carry them out of the relegation zone under Rafa Benitez, but it just doesn't happen. They're not bad going forwards, but they are another team that's just really poor defensively. I would back Swansea to exploit that and win this one.
I'm with you on that one as well. All right, next match, West Brom versus Watford. I think both teams, neither have got anything particularly to play for. I think both are in a bit of a lull. I'm not sure where I'd stand on the outright, but I'm predicting an under in this match. What's your lean?
I'd be leaning towards a board draw in this match. Both teams really have checked out for the season. Watford have been an alarming freefall. They secured their Premier League survival for another season, but recently they've just been pretty dreadful. And West Brom are the same. They're another team that strike me as that they're already planning for next season. They're just sort of going through the motions, both of them. I think they'll cancel each other out. I think, like you, under 2.5 goals looks good. I'd go for a draw. I'd probably spread a bet between 0-0 and 1-1.
All right, next we've got Premier League's highlight match there, Chelsea versus Man City. Man City obviously making history through to the semis in the Champions League. They did, the return match obviously was on their turf, so they shouldn't be too fatigued. Will that match have any sort of impact on them, on their match against Chelsea?
It probably will. It was such a fantastic win for Man City. They must have expended a lot of energy in doing it. Their priority really is the Champions League this season, but they also, in case they don't win it, which, you know, Barcelona are clear favourites there, they want to make sure that they qualify for next season's Champions League under Guardiola. So they do really need to be winning games, so they're going to have to pick themselves up and go for this one. Fascinating match, because you would have looked at the fixtures at the start of the season and thought, this is going to be the title decider. Instead, you've got sort of 10th versus 4th, which is incredible position for both of those two teams to be in. I think I'd lean towards a draw here. If I had to go either way, probably for Man City.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I've actually got Man City, where are the odds here? Man City draw, no bet. You get that with 2 with Coral. Obviously, Chelsea do come from that 1-0 Swans loss. Not good for their confidence. I think Man City are going to be riding high. I either would play the Man City win, 2.82. Interestingly, slight underdogs there. And then I would also play the Man City draw, no bet, just for a little bit of security. Next match is obviously Sunday's match, Bournemouth versus Liverpool. Liverpool, obviously, they'll be playing Dortmund tomorrow. So how will that affect this match?
Yeah, I think it's another case of a team that's got its priorities in Europe. But again, Liverpool need to start picking up points. They need to climb up the table. The position they're in simply isn't good enough for a club of their stature. They want to qualify for Europe next season, and they need to take the Premiership seriously as well. They've got a decent squad. They have players that they can put in for this game. Bournemouth aren't playing particularly well of late, so despite their endeavours in Europe, I still fancy Liverpool to win this one.
Yeah, I do as well. They're priced 2.17. Also quite like both teams to score. I think due to fatigue, I think, just playing their game on Thursday, Bournemouth are at home. I think we could see a goal, and that's 1.8 Coral.
Looks like a good bet to me, yes. Always a good bet with Liverpool because they're very good going forwards, but they're very, very poor defensively. Their centre-halves aren't really up to much. So, I think that's a very good bet.
Yeah. All right. Next, Leicester versus West Ham. Normally, I'm all over Leicester to play their odds there, 2. I'm a little unsure, though. West Ham are playing, aren't they? They're playing to stay up in 6th. At least.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be a little bit closer. And instead, I'm going to go for both teams to score 1.8.
I think that looks like a very good bet. West Ham.
Would you play Leicester?
Obviously, on the back of a 3-3 draw with Arsenal, Andy Carroll playing great. I just don't want to bet against Leicester at the moment. I've said it a couple of times this season that surely this winning run's going to have to come to an end, and it never does. They're playing with such discipline at the moment. They're just defensively, they've been solid as a rock. Kante's boss in the midfield, and they're scoring goals going forward. So I think it's very risky to back anything but a Leicester win, just given the momentum that they're on at the moment. So has to be Leicester for me, I'm afraid.
All right, Leicester for you. Okay, Arsenal versus Crystal Palace. Obviously must win for the Gunners there, but Crystal Palace are 10 points clear of relegation. So not much for Leicester in this match, but a lot riding for Arsenal. Arsenal are strong favourites though, 1.36. Would you stick that in an accumulator?
I'd stick Arsenal in an accumulator, yes. Once again, it's too late for them to win the league. As soon as the pressure is off, Arsenal start playing well, which is a strange thing. They're very weak mentally, but technically they've got great players. They're far too far behind Leicester now to make up the gap. So I think they'll play with freedom, and I actually expect them to beat Crystal Palace relatively comfortably.
Yeah. Do you expect Arsenal to finish in the top 4?
Very much so, yes. They always finish in the top 4. I fancy them for 3rd, really, to be honest. I think Man City are a bit distracted in Europe. I think Man United aren't good enough to make up the ground on them, and I don't really think West Ham will fight their way into it. I think it will probably end up as it is now: Leicester, Tottenham, Arsenal, Man City.
Well, next and final match there, Monday's match, Stoke versus Tottenham. Obviously, Tottenham come from a great 3-0 victory. They are on a high there, but they're 7 points behind Leicester. Can they catch them up at this stage? It is a must-win for them. It's also a must-win for Stoke. Whereas I think this is going to be a close match. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I don't think Tottenham can catch them up, really, just given Leicester's momentum. But what a fantastic season it's been for Tottenham. They've played some great football, and they absolutely took Man United apart in the last game. Stoke are a very good side. They don't have as much to play for. And I think I'd fancy Tottenham here to keep the pressure up on Leicester with a win, but I still think it'll be too late for them to actually win the title.
Yeah, all right. Tottenham win 1.85. That comes to the end of our Premier League rundown, week 34. If you'd like more information, do check out Martin's article over at oddsmarket.com. Link is in the description. Martin, thank you for joining us.